What's up, MMA fans? This is Jimmy Smith. If you aren't listening to my podcast, I'm glad you're listening to the Split Decision podcast with Phil, the MMA dude, and the Fight Geek. Enjoy.
Hey guys, it's Phil, the MMA dude. Back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 23, here with my brilliant co-host, the Fight Geek. Fight Geek, how you doing today?
Doing excellent. Happy to be back. Episode 23. Let's go.
Here we go. And I know we missed last week, guys. Sorry about that. Apologies. We always try to do an episode before each event, but we both had some things going on. We will try to continue to miss as few events as possible. I know y'all missed us. We missed you. Okay, enough of that. Let's jump into a quick breakdown of what's on tap today. First, we got a UFC 237 recap, a Bellator 221 recap, which I was personally at. I had a great time at Bellator 221. More on that later. We're going to jump into a UFC Rochester preview. Kevin Lee versus RDA is the main event. That should be an absolute banger. Then finally jumping into the listener questions and more. So, Fight Geek, let me open up the episode with a question for you. Rose Namajunas, the former strawweight champion, was finished in a fairly controversial fashion in the second round of her title fight against Jessica Andrade after getting slammed to the ground and losing consciousness. What are your thoughts on the fight and on Jessica's performance and particularly the idea that the slam on Rose's head, which was a slam on her head, was arguably illegal? Now, I've heard many arguments, but what are your thoughts?
Well, first, to tackle the illegal slam, no, I do not believe that was an illegal slam. I do believe Rose had other options to defend other than holding on. I think she had a Kimura grip, and she held on to the Kimura all the way through the throw, which is why she ended up on her head. So when there's that kind of action, especially in Brazil during a title fight, I'm not sure that, you can say that's illegal because, there's such unpredictable action. As you saw there, when she landed the way she did, it was an absolutely brutal knockout slam. When I saw it, I really thought Rose was seriously injured, the way her neck kind of cranked.
Yeah.
So my first thought, honestly, was concern for Rose. I was just hoping that everything was okay because the way it looked was horrible. That being said, Jessica Andrade is just so strong. I mean, pound for pound, she has to be one of the top 5 strongest fighters in the UFC. I mean, she is so strong. I thought Rose was looking good up until that point. I think she was actually implementing her game plan, which was staying at range, landing sharp, crisp punches, kind of trying to keep Jessica at bay. But as you saw, once they kind of got in tight exchanges, Jessica's strength showed through. And then with that slam, kind of came, I don't know, it was just very shocking to me. I don't know. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with almost everything you said. I think that, first of all, through that first round and even a half, before Rose got dunked on her head and knocked unconscious, I would go ahead and say that was the most complete Rose Namajunas I've ever seen. She was behind her jab, number one, and then, sticking in the cross, moving, keeping distance. She looked brilliant. She cut Jessica.
She's an amazing technical striker.
Amazing.
Very, very technical.
Absolutely. And, she was pretty much dominating the fight until she got dumped on her head. Now, I agree with you really quickly that it was a legal slam. Now, the rules state, just to clarify for everyone who doesn't know, the rules state that you may not purposefully slam someone onto their head. Now, Rose was slammed onto her head, but the reason that it was legal is because Rose could have gotten out of that slam had she let go of the Kimura. It was not something that Jessica intended to do. Rose chose to hold on, and it resulted in what it resulted in. But I agree, perfectly legal slam.
Yeah, I think that's, especially if you've been watching MMA for any amount of time, slams have been a part of the game for a long time. I mean, unless you see someone deliberately smash someone on the crown of their head, I think most slams are legal.
Yep, absolutely agree. One other quick aspect I wanted to touch on was I don't know if you've seen the video clips going around, but it does appear, at least in some videos, that as Jessica is lifting Rose up and Rose has that Kimura going, it does appear in some videos that Jessica is tapping just before the slam.
Yeah, it does somewhat appear like that, but I do also think it vaguely appears that she's like trying to get her grip. So she's holding Rose up. So she would naturally be reaching over to clasp her hands or grab her wrist or close that. So it kind of looks like she did that, but there was some resistance and may have pulled it back. I've seen it edited on like a GIF, and it really looks like a tap there, but in real time, it doesn't quite look like a tap to me, but I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a really rare and bizarre scenario. I agree with you overall. Do I think that she should have been? Do I think Jessica should have lost with a replay of that? Absolutely not. First of all, the ref didn't deem it a tap, so I mean that's first and foremost. Also, what's so bizarre about it though is you very rarely see fighters making a tapping motion where they're literally tapping, but they're not it doesn't appear that they're in immediate pain or danger. So that's a very unique and bizarre situation. So let me follow that all up with this. So I think we both agree it was a completely legitimate victory for Jessica Andrade, despite Rose definitely winning the fight up until the point in the second round when she got knocked out. Who would you like to see Andrade face next? Not who you think she'll face next. Who would you like to see her face next?
Well, I would like to see her fight Joanna next, personally.
Really? Over a Rose rematch?
Yeah, I think with what Rose is saying, similar to kind of the Rory McDonald aftermath, where, disappointing performance and then not sure, kind of the vague about the future. I do think Rose has interests outside of fighting that she very well could chase. She really doesn't like being in the public eye, so I could actually see her taking another fight or two to build herself back up before needing to be in a title fight. I don't feel like she necessarily feels like she needs to do that. But the fact that Jessica Andrade has been really handling and dominating every single fighter she's fought since fighting Joanna, that's very intriguing to me. Styles make fights. The same way that Rose had Joanna's number, maybe Joanna has Andrade's number. I want to see it. There's some intrigue there for me.
Yep, absolutely. And for those of you that don't know, I'm sure you know what most of you know what Fight Geek's referring to. But after the fight, Rose definitely inferred that she may be retiring, that she may not want to do this anymore. So that's what Fight Geek's referring to in terms of Rose's comments after the fight. It seems, Fight Geek, and tell me if you disagree, it seems like Rose has since backed off at least a little on that. Well, I don't know. I've got to think about it.
Well, I mean, again, this was 30 minutes after having her neck bent in half and getting knocked unconscious from, her spine cranking, basically. So the people who take anything they say in the post, I enjoy the post-fight press conferences myself. I tune in every Saturday night and listen to them, but you have to take what's said in those with a grain of salt, especially, I thought it was incredibly impressive of Rose to even show up to the post-fight press conference considering she had been knocked out. That's very rare nowadays. You don't see many people, especially when they take a big shot like that.
Yep. Absolutely, absolutely. And then just to really, really quickly wrap this up, I will respectfully disagree with you. I think that I'd like to see JJ fight the winner of Suarez versus Nina Ansaroff, perhaps, for a title eliminator while we go and see Jessica Andrade versus Rose Namajunas 2. I think that Rose has definitely earned that rematch. She was winning the fight until the slam. I'm not saying it was luck. I'm not saying Andrade doesn't deserve to be champ. Of course she does. But how can you not want an immediate rematch after a fight like that, where Rose was dominating?
Well, I'm personally not a huge fan of immediate rematches. I'm a fan of seeing fresh matchups, even though Andrade versus Joanna feels like a fresh matchup to me because she's been on a tear since she lost to her. So there's a storyline there for me as well. But I get what you're saying, but I just saw that fight. I want to see a new fight.
Okay.
That's just how I am.
Okay, fair. And we've seen, obviously, JJ versus Andrade before, so this is...
But that feels like a lifetime ago now that Andrade has one-shot KO'd Carolina and now, Rampage slammed Rose. I mean, she's a whole different figure since that fight.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do think she's improved quite a bit, honestly, and she was good then.
Who picked Andrade and who picked Rose? I forget. Was it you that picked? You picked Andrade.
Does it matter that I'm always picking the fight? I pick the fighters that are winning up until like the crazy finish.
All right,
there's other fights to actually cover.
Moving on.
Brazil card was depressing, wasn't it?
Say that one more time. The Anderson Silva.
No, I said this actual UFC 237 card was depressing, but you were at Bellator 221, so you probably didn't realize it.
We
can briefly cover Anderson Silva got finished by an inside leg kick, withering in pain on the ground. I think everybody was unhappy to see that. I know the Brazilian crowd certainly was unhappy to see that.
What did you make of the boos at the end? They did seem extremely excessive.
Would you expect anything else?
I don't think it's something you see in the States.
No, you don't see that in the States, but if you don't expect that from Brazil, then you don't know the culture of MMA and Bellator in Brazil. I mean, they get wild down there and they chant all their chants, and I mean, remember Colby Covington down there?
Well,
big.
Wait, big.
But I'm sure Colby Covington had that building louder than Jared Cannonier did.
Colby, okay, in defense of the Brazilian audience, Covington called them a bunch of savages or something.
They've been known for these kind of back and forths with fighters. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Cannonier...
I mean, if you really want to break it down, I think Anderson Silva is arguably the greatest Brazilian mixed martial arts fighter, to a large generation of people. So, to see it go down like that is pretty horrible. But I do think it's time for Anderson to go. What do you think?
Oh, you think it's time for him to retire?
Well, the pain he was in from those leg kicks, I don't see what the benefit is now. If he's going to be getting finished by Jared Cannonier, it's like the BJ Penn syndrome, and we can get to that fight next.
It's so much worse. I mean, sorry, BJ is much worse.
BJ's so much worse, but if we let Anderson go for the next 3 years, it might be the same thing.
Don't forget, in Anderson's defense, I'm playing devil's advocate. In Anderson's defense, he won a round against Stylebender. He won a round.
But to some people's points, Stylebender was content in that fight to go style for style with Silva and more or less point fight. I truly believe he did not want to finish Anderson Silva.
Okay. Fair.
I just believe he had so much respect for him. Similar to the way a lot of people, and I'm jumping around, but the Clay Guida BJ Penn fight, when Clay Guida was pinning him up against the cage and his coaches were begging him for 2 rounds to pull off and hit BJ and knock him out, I personally think Clay Guida was saving BJ Penn from getting knocked out. I think he let him go to the decision. Personally, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I saw the fight later on. I didn't see it live. Of course, as you said, I was at Bellator 221. I saw the fight later. I didn't think either fighter looked particularly good, but I was surprised it went to that decision. And look, I just think that it's time to cut BJ
hold on.
loose.
In the 3rd round, when he's holding BJ against the fence, in his corner is imploring him to separate and punch. Does it look like he makes a conscious effort not to do that?
I'd have to go back and honestly rewatch. I can't say that for sure.
I feel pretty confident about that.
Really? Because
Yeah.
would Clay take that risk because it was 29-28, 29-28, 29-27. So I mean,
it was
Clay lost the first round.
Yeah, but that's debatable. But obviously he lost it on the cards, but
yeah.
I'm sure he didn't. He may not have felt like he lost it in his head.
I don't know if I'm sure that he subconsciously was holding back a little, but I don't know if he was consciously holding back.
I feel like he held back because I feel like he could have finished BJ, but maybe I'm getting off on a tangent. Maybe I read too much into it. But
okay, well, hang on. Let's reel back in real fast. We're not going to cover all this card. There's so much to cover tonight, guys. But I definitely need to touch on the featherweight bout between Alexander Volkanovski and Jose Aldo. Volkanovski winning a unanimous 30-27 decision on all three judges' scorecards. Fikey, what did you make of that? What did you make of that fight?
Well, I hate to say it because Aldo has fought back Father Time so many times, but this was the first time I ever saw Jose Aldo look old. He looked old. He performed old. He couldn't pull the trigger. He didn't have as much snap as we're used to. I mean, his leg kicks have been something he's been failing to implement for quite a while now. And against a guy like Volkanovski, who's surging upward, who's very athletic, who has all the skills he needs to be a champion, we were going to need to see, a better version of Aldo. And we just did not get a great version of him. And I think what you saw was not overly spectacular from Volkanovski, but he proved that he's clearly better than Jose Aldo today, I think. And that's quite a statement. But, Jose Aldo is still an absolute legend of the sport. That's, like I said, out of 33 career fights, I think that's the first time I've truly kind of seen him, have any kind of, fall off. So.
Yep. Okay. Last question about this card, and it's related to the Volkanovski-Aldo fight, and then we'll move on. I don't know if you saw my Twitter. I know you've got me muted, Fight Geek. But I wrote recently that you probably heard late last night. UFC 240's main event is Holloway versus Frankie Edgar for the featherweight title. I was honestly I was very disgusted by this, and there's guys I respect Frankie so much. I understand his past accomplishments, but they're enough is enough with the.
He just got knocked out by the guy who got brutalized by the champion.
Yeah, and then he won a decision against. No offense again, guys, but he won a decision against Cub Swanson after. Ooh,
well,
put him in the title.
That's neither here nor there. I think it's pretty clear why he's getting the title shot, and I think it probably has to do with his management.
Yeah. You've got to wonder what, not to get too far into the weeds, you've got to wonder what Ali Abdelaziz has on Dana. He clearly has something big on him.
Well, I just think they work together because all his fighters get all the title shots.
Right. And why are they working together in such harmony?
I don't know. I don't want to get off on that.
All right. Ali's got something on Dana, let's be honest, but whatever. It was a disgusting decision. No disrespect to Frankie Edgar. I love him, but
I love Frankie Edgar too. But there's no way he can fight for the belt. Next.
What a joke! What a joke! What a joke! What a joke that 240 main event is. What a shame. But anyways, moving on to Bellator.
I'll still watch it.
Yeah, we both will, and they know that. That's why they made it. Moving on to Bellator 221. Guys, I was there.
Great card. What a card.
What a card. I was there on the floor. I had floor seats. I was, maybe 20 feet away. If you guys follow me on Twitter, you saw a lot of my videos. I was right next to the walkouts, so I got some amazing nice footage of MVP Chandler touched my hand. That was kind of cool, although I think I was a little bit of bad luck.
Your favorite fighter, TJ?
Huh?
Your favorite fighter, TJ Jones?
Yeah. TJ Jones. TJ Jones was, you know what? He soaked up the moment when he came out. Let's But yeah, he soaked up the moment. He was a lot of fun.
I think his walk-in was longer than the fight.
Yeah. Actually, let's go in reverse order for this Bellator card, and let's start with TJ Jones versus Jake Hager, aka Jack Swagger. TJ came out and he was really soaking up the moment. He was actually I liked his walkout. He was frankly showing a lot of charisma, and the crowd was loving it. He was giving high fives, and as obviously Jake came out all business. TJ got a much louder reception from the crowd, and as soon as
I think he was the everyman underdog.
Yeah, of course.
Week. Everybody loved him. His story.
Of course.
He just was not the man for the job, unfortunately.
Right. So as soon as the fight started, by the way, there were several breakout chants. One of them directly behind me of about 10 to 15 people of TJ, TJ, TJ. And that was echoing through the arena. So, I don't know if that irritated Jake, but I want to get to the finish. So obviously Jake gets him in a submission. I believe it was a triangle submission choke. And TJ starts tapping, and Jake Hager holds it.
But let me ask you a question, though, because on TV it was clear he held it. Was it clear in real time in the arena?
It was even more clear in the arena. So he holds it for a good 4 to 5 seconds after TJ taps.
I'd say a solid 4.
Okay, so the ref, it's the guy with the long two beards.
Beltran.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. Mike Beltran. So he's saying stop, and he's trying to pry Jake's hands off of TJ, and then he finally pries him off and shoves him across the cage. And Jake could barely get his victory speech through because people were booing so dramatically, so incessantly for a good 5 to 7 minutes after the fight.
Here's the real question then. Was it a good move or a bad move?
For Jake?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I really hate to say it, but it was probably a smart move. I mean, for his career. I'm not encouraging
that was a wrestler turning heel move big time.
Oh, yeah. And I'm not encouraging how dangerous that was.
He didn't know that he had tapped. Maybe he was lost in the moment. You don't think there's any chance of that?
Nah. Went too long. Went too long for that.
I know, but then it really brings into question, what kind of guy he is. Why would he want to do that to someone like TJ?
Well, I mean, let's remember that TJ was certainly mocking him a lot during the fight week, during the face-off, the weigh-ins. There was a lot of trash.
There's no way for that guy to mock Jack Swagger.
Oh, he was.
Let's move on.
Again, I think that Jake did it on purpose, aka Jack Swagger did it on purpose. And if I'm being honest, business-wise, it was probably a smart move. Now, I feel bad saying that because I don't approve.
More people will tune in to hope he gets his ass kicked next time than would have ever turned in to see if he's going to win.
Exactly.
Okay, so he won.
Okay. Moving on. I'm still
holding out hope for the Bobby Lashley versus Jake Hager match.
That'd be fun, actually. I would do that.
I don't know if it'd be fun.
Well, okay, whatever. So AJ McKee defeated Pat Curran via unanimous decision, 30-27.
This was a snooze fest.
Such a snooze fest. Thank you.
Yeah. I will say one thing though, AJ McKee, gobs of talent. Dude has all the talent in the world to be one of the elite in the world. So very talented. Even outpointing Jeff Curran at this point. Or is it Jeff? No, it was the other Curran.
It was Pat.
Yeah, so even outpointing Pat Curran at this point of his career at 24, former 2-time champion Curran, that's very impressive. But there's not much to talk about. So let's move on to the meat.
All right. So, in my opinion, the highlight of the night, whether it was UFC or Bellator, and I realize I might be being a little biased because I was at Bellator, but I truly feel this was the highlight, was Douglas Lima versus MVP, aka Michael Venom Page. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, you saw I filmed the walkout of MVP. What a walkout it was. He was wearing the gold chains, the sunglasses, doing his dance to chants of MVP, MVP. The audience was soaking it up. And, yeah, go ahead.
How'd that work out for him, though?
Exactly. No, I was going to say, if I'm being honest, I was secretly rooting for Lima a little bit before that walkout, but then after the walkout, I was really rooting for Lima because it just felt douchey. Forced. Thank you. Even better. It felt forced. And
that's been the whole MVP's whole career from Bellator has felt forced.
Yep.
Me. So it's kind of a microcosm. But, to break down the fight, I do think that MVP's distance control and his in and out and his quickness was giving Lima some problems. But I do think it was only a matter of time. But did you notice that in real time that Lima actually gets clipped right before the finishing sequence?
Oh, absolutely. And
so a lot of people really haven't touched on this, but the fact that he was able to kind of get his wits about him and land that punch, whether it be luck or not, it landed right on the button, like right on his chin.
Oh, yeah. It was, again, maybe I'm being biased because I was there. I thought it was one of the most beautiful finishing sequences of the year.
It's one of the more visually pleasing knockouts you'll see because of his body flailing both ways.
Absolutely.
Very dramatic.
Very dramatic. Lima.
Nothing will beat Ronda Rousey catching that head kick, though.
Oh, yeah.
It was very dramatic.
Yeah, Lima, and by the way, Lima went on Helwani's show yesterday, and Ariel asked him, how hurt were you when you got, rocked a little behind the head? He said, oh, yeah, I was hurt. He admitted it. Douglas said
that makes that finish even more impressive to me.
Yeah, exactly. The timing of the kick, the timing of the uppercut.
Even though Lima won, I do think that there's positives for MVP to pull out of this. I do think he looked good in spurts. I still feel like he could get off more. He's in and out, but he's not throwing much.
My takeaway is that he's sloppy. He's trying very hard to look like Stylebender and Jones.
He needs to throw some punches.
He thinks he's Stylebender. He thinks he's John Jones, and he's not. He looks too sloppy. He's when you saw the leg kick that took him, took the leg out from under him. He's got his leg so far in front of him, it looks like he's boxing.
And then the real reason he got knocked out is because of the amateurish way he gets up with his chin fully exposed. That's why you'll see 9 out of 10 guys roll on their back and bite someone into their guard, or else, scramble to get up from their back. They're not going to just get up face first.
Right.
So,
I
listened to MVP's post-fight, and he was actually really poignant the way he broke it down. He understood where he was wrong, where he made the mistakes. So I actually think MVP gets a lot better from this, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. And then last question on this fight. Sorry, I was obsessed with this fight. I personally would be very surprised if Douglas Lima does not win the welterweight tournament, whether it's Rory or Neiman Gracie.
I would agree at this point.
I think that Lima's going to win the tournament.
He's the favorite today, for sure.
Yeah.
And then where do you think he is? Here, we got to do this. If he was in the UFC, or do we have a question about that later?
See, guys, this is the evidence you're looking for that Fight Geek has muted me. I actually put a poll up, Fight Geek, about 24 hours ago.
I'm a free-thinking guy. I don't need you to quiz me on every topic in MMA.
I put up a poll asking this exact question 24 hours ago.
Maybe that's where I'm pulling it from. So where do you think you would lie today, ranking-wise?
Top 5, top 4, maybe.
I agree completely. I would say the same range.
I think you'd have trouble, with those top end wrestlers. Like,
would he have trouble with Kevin Lee or RDA?
I think they'd be, man. When you ask that question, I just want to see him. I want to see him come over. I think those would be amazing fights. Amazing.
Yeah, could you imagine? Well, the thing with Lima is he doesn't handle wrestlers very well, but Bellator doesn't have the type of wrestlers in that division to really test him. Could you imagine him versus Kevin Lee or him versus Usman? Those are the kind of fight, or him versus Woodley. Those are the type of fights that would expose his weaknesses.
Well, hold up. Those are different. I like his chances against Kevin Lee at welterweight.
Right.
Now Usman and Woodley, those are different.
Well,
Those are
Usman
different.
obviously would be too much for him in the wrestling department, but on the feet, could Douglas Lima beat up that front leg?
Yeah, I mean, it makes
You
me
see
want
what he
to.
does to people's legs?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
I mean, it would be nice. I hope someday that Bellator is getting like increasingly creative with the way they will allow their fighters to go cross-promotional.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, the UFC will dip their toe into that pool. I just feel like they will. So it'd be interesting to see if a guy like Douglas Lima would be one of those type of guys if that's ever presents itself in the future.
Geez, I hope so. Would love to see it.
Or even see like Douglas Lima and Risen or something.
Yeah.
It could be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyways, okay,
let's move on to the main
The
event.
main event.
Okay. Patricio Pitbull Freire defeats Michael Chandler via first round TKO to win the lightweight title, become the second double champ currently in Bellator. He's both the featherweight and the lightweight champ. He did it at 1 minute and 1 second of the first round. Now, the finish reminded me personally a lot of the Dillashaw Cejudo fight.
Ooh, I thought the finish reminded me of Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier.
Oh, I thought that Chandler was more
Chandler
awake.
I'm just talking about how he got hit behind the ear. He got hit back on the temple. Or behind his ear, you know?
Yeah, as did TJ.
More of a glancing shot that knocked his equilibrium off.
Right.
Conor continued to follow up. Pitbull didn't get a chance to follow up, but I'm sure he would have hammer-fisted him out if he had the chance.
Well, Pitbull followed up a little bit. I mean, Chandler was on the ground, Pitbull was hitting him, and it looked.
Yeah, but it was obviously broken up extremely quick.
Do you think it was a very early stoppage and Chandler could have gotten out of it?
I think that Michael Chandler deserves to have a little more leash to fight through that. I thought it was quick. He was obviously hurt, and he acknowledged as much, but we've seen guys come back from far worse than being clipped behind the ear.
Yeah, I know. I understand that, but I mean, the very end of the fight was
the kind of wrestler Michael Chandler is. What if you could have got up, closed the distance, recovered, and then worn out Pitbull?
The very end of the fight, though. But just the end of the fight is Chandler turtling up and getting punched badly, and it looks like he goes out for at least a second for sure.
It's a really tough one, but it's still in real time. You always are looking at everything in slow-mo replay. In real time, it felt like a quick stoppage. Maybe after breaking it down and really analyzing the situation, it may have been a little more appropriate than I thought, but it felt fast in the moment.
Oh yeah, no, and I still think it was probably a bit of an early stoppage, but do I think that Chandler was going to get out of that situation? No. So
yeah, but we don't know now.
Well, yeah. It looked like he had gone out.
The guy was at the post-fight press conference putting together his speech 100% perfectly. Like, he's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
so
there
was more damage that he could have taken, obviously.
I think that there's one thing that, and you correct me if you disagree here. One thing that we've learned about Michael Chandler in his last 3 or 4 fights is that he's got chin problems. He's very chinny.
He's kind of fluky. He can lose in fluky manners for sure.
Look at Brent Primus. Look at the rematch. Forget the first fight. Look at the rematch with Primus. He gets put on his butt in the second round and very nearly finished. So
it's a good point. He does get clipped a lot. It's always been a thing of his. So
yeah, but anyways,
it was still surprising to see someone like Pitbull come up in 10 pounds and knock out someone like Michael Chandler.
Yeah. So what do you want Pitbull to do next? Because obviously he's in an awkward situation where his brother Patricky was the lightweight champ. So, they were asking him, are you going to drop the belt so that your brother can have a shot at it? He kind of seemed unsure and uncomfortable with the question. I personally would love to see a Patricio Pitbull versus Michael Chandler too. What about you? What's next for you?
Well, I just told you that I didn't want to see a rematch with Rose and Andrade because I don't like watching the same fight back. So I would certainly want to see AJ McKee versus Pitbull. I think that's brewing. I think that's the fight to make. Pitbull had a 3-fight trilogy with Pat Curran, went back and forth with that guy, so that's a good measuring point to see if AJ McKee's ready for Pitbull. And the fact that he outpointed him with taking absolutely no damage shows me that he's at least capable of being in the cage and holding his own with Pitbull. So I think it's time for that fight. Pitbull versus AJ McKee for that belt. And then I think Pitbull said that he wants his brother to fight Michael Chandler again.
What happened to shootout at the OK Corrales? What about Henry Corrales? Where does he fit in?
I'm not quite sure, but I'm not even sure that he's still under contract with Bellator, is he?
Oh, geez, he'd better be. I mean...
Well, isn't Juan Archuleta in that division also?
I'll have to look that up.
Getting off topic.
Okay, we're getting into the weeds. But hopefully Corrales, deserves, I think he certainly, he just knocked out Aaron Pico. At the very least, he deserves a title eliminator against AJ McKee. I mean, come on.
AJ McKee's 14-0, dude. Come on. AJ McKee.
Okay.
What if AJ McKee goes and beats the champ? And then they really have the big star on their hands that they want.
Yeah, you weren't there. AJ McKee looked horrible. Like horrendous.
He didn't look horrible. That was just a lackluster fight. So perfectly fine fight.
Yeah, no, absolutely, very fair. Last thing I'll say before we wrap up Bellator 221, guys, is if you've never gone to a Bellator event and it never comes by, get a chance, go to a Bellator event for two reasons. Number one, they're a lot cheaper than UFC events, and number two, they bring a level of there's sort of a closeness just to the whole proximity of the fighters and the situation.
Like a pep rally feel.
Yeah, exactly. To name a quick example, I'm just standing trying to get to my seats, and I'm holding a drink and I'm holding food, and I start talking to this gentleman next to me who's wearing a cast, and it's Patricky Pitbull. And it took me a few seconds to realize it, which was quite embarrassing. And I quickly realized it, of course, and was able to take a picture with him. But me and Patricky Pitbull just spoke for like 3 minutes, and that won't happen in a UFC event, So
that's true.
I thought that was pretty cool, guys. Check out Bellator events if you get a chance, because you'll get experiences like that. Moving on to UFC Rochester. Fight Geek, I'm gonna let you kick off the answer to this question. The main event is fascinating. It's a welterweight contest. Kevin Lee versus former lightweight champ Rafael Dos Anjos. Who ya got?
Well, I think it's going to be a tough fight. I'm going with Kevin Lee. I think he's surging up. I think he's going to love fighting at 170 after having all those painful weight cuts and dealing with staph infections and being fatigued. I think being at 170, we're going to see the best Kevin Lee. And I think the best Kevin Lee at this point is actually going to be very impressive. The guy has shown glimpses of how good he can be at 155, and I think we're going to see as he rounds into the second part of his career at 170, all that potential really come to fruition. Dos Anjos, you got to love because he keeps taking, tough challenger after tough challenger. The guy's never taken an easy fight in his life, it seems like. But just another pace wrestler who's going to give him problems. And I think Kevin Lee is going to be so driven to prove he belongs after changing weight classes that he's just going to have a great performance. I'm going to go out and say Kevin Lee by split decision.
Are you kidding me on that?
No.
That's exactly my pick. Kevin Lee split decision. I was going to say I was so tempted to pick RDA because I think that's he's getting slept on here. Let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, RDA was 1 round away from beating Colby Covington for that interim belt at UFC 225. That was a great fight. It was a great fight. And Colby barely
For the
won.
record, I think Kevin Lee will be better than Colby Covington at 170.
Do you?
I do. I think in time, Kevin Lee will be the better fighter than Colby Covington.
Okay. I also, like I said, I agree with you. Kevin Lee by split decision is what I see happening. I expected a 5-round war, extremely competitive. Do not bet on this, folks. If you're a MMA gambler, I would stay away from that fight. And it would not surprise me. It would not surprise me if RDA wins.
Any outcome is possible in this fight.
Yeah, I was going to say, it wouldn't surprise me if RDA wins at all, but I do see Lee getting it done via split decision. Moving on, what other fights did you want to cover on this card? Obviously, there was the co-main, Vicente Luque versus Neil Magny, which has been canceled, I believe, due to Magny failing a USADA drug test. Is that accurate?
I guess. I didn't even follow up. I just saw briefly that it was off. But I did want to call out the Antonio Carlos Jr. Shoeface versus Ian Heinisch. It's kind of, I'm a big Shoeface fan. I think it's going to be a fun fight. I'm taking Shoeface versus Ian Heinisch, who's another guy who's been interesting to me.
And just for the record, I got Ian Heinisch defeating Shoeface. So we disagree.
Nice. I'm taking Shoeface by 3rd round submission.
Okay. Heinisch by unanimous decision for me.
All right. I love Charles Oliveira versus Nick Lentz.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking, the Bronx, Charles Oliveira.
Mm-hmm.
Dude is a submission wizard, super athletic. Always love watching him fight. I don't understand why he's still fighting guys like Nick Lentz. He should be in the top 15, clearly, in the lightweight division. Amazing fighter. Taking Charles Oliveira by 1st round submission.
Ooh, bold. Okay, I got Oliveira.
Yeah, he has a tendency to get him out of there quick if he catches him.
Yep, I got Oliveira by unanimous decision. But
Nice.
I hope you're right. Yours is more exciting. Any thoughts on really quick on Megan Anderson versus Spencer?
Well, my first thought is it's Megan Anderson, and second, yes, I'm taking.
Oh, how dare I? Sorry, Megan.
And second, I'm taking Megan Anderson. I'll take her by unanimous decision here. She's just so big. I think she's going to be able to institute her length and reach advantage versus a girl who's making her debut in the UFC.
Yeah, I got Anderson as well by 3rd round stoppage.
All right, what about the Aspen Ladd fight? Can you see who she's fighting?
Sarge Eubanks, of course.
Oh yeah,
So,
your favorite.
Thank you for mentioning that fight. I don't remember exactly who Ladd's last opponent was. I think it was who Cyborg won the featherweight belt from.
No, she was scheduled to fight Holly Holm, and she never got it.
No. But when Cyborg won the belt and it was vacated by Jermaine Durandamy, it was at UFC 214. I was there in person, and Cyborg fought. What is
Yanda Kunitsakaya?
Oh my gosh, driving me crazy here. I gotta look it up. But I know that Cyborg won that against someone that fought Aspen Ladd, and I chose Aspen Ladd in the fight via finish, and then you kind of mocked me, like, what? Tanya Evinger.
Oh, yeah, because Tanya's so tough, yes.
Well,
right.
You were telling me Tanya never gets finished, and then Aspen quickly finished her. I think that Sarge Eubanks is getting fed to the wolves. So
yeah, I think Aspen Ladd's going to be too much for her as well.
Oh, easily. Remember, Aspen Ladd was supposed to fight Holly Holm. I've got Aspen Ladd by 1st round finish.
I'll take her by unanimous decision.
Wow.
It's Michael Truzano versus who?
This is one of those awkward moments where Truzano is not coming up as a fighter on this card. Michael Trizano versus Grant Dawson, right?
Got any thoughts on that one? 8-0 versus 13-1.
Sorry?
We can move on.
I got Trizano, but I don't feel comfortable.
I'm taking Trizano too. He's beat Joe Giannetti and Luis Pena though, so he actually has a couple decent wins on his resume since he's come from the Tough House.
Absolutely. Okay, can we move on to listener questions?
Only if you introduce them correctly.
All right, guys, it's time for the listener questions.
All right, I got one queued up right here.
Great.
From, let's see. Quinn, show regular, at Orthodox 1993. He says, y'all think in the rematch, Rose versus Andrade would go differently? So we've already discussed whether or not we feel like the rematch should happen. Quinn is asking, do you think if it does happen, it'll go differently?
Yeah, great question, Quinn. I am going to go ahead and say something controversial. Ready? I think it would indeed go differently, and Rose would win a unanimous decision. I think that she made a very foolish mistake in the moment by not letting go of the Kimura. That's the only reason she was slammed down. I don't think she'd make that decision twice. We saw what happened on the feet. Yeah, that's why I told you earlier that I want a Rose versus Andrade 2 immediately. I have to see that finished, and I don't think that it was a satisfying conclusion to that rivalry. I think Rose would win a rematch.
I kind of feel the same way based on what we saw before the finish, which was somewhat fluky. I don't like saying that, but in MMA, fluky is like a regular thing because you cannot control the action. So, yep, I kind of agree with you there.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question. Okay, so this is from my good friend 604 MMA at 604 MMA. Now that Andrade is strawweight champ and has had stints at bantamweight, she certainly has the frame for bantamweight, perhaps even flyweight. Does she stand a chance at either champ, against either champ? Although bantamweight and flyweight champs are obviously both Amanda Nunes. What's next for her, especially since having that loss to JJ? That's 604 MMA's question. Fight Geek, kick it off.
No, she has no chance versus Amanda Nunes, first of all. And that's not putting her down. That's just how I feel.
Agreed. She gets starched.
And I think she'd lose to Valentina as well, just based off size. She was good at 135. She wasn't great at 135. She's great at 115 because she possesses strength that none of the 115-pound girls possess. That's something she loses when she goes up. So I think she's clearly a dominant fighter at her weight now, but she would struggle with the champions at the weight classes above. Just my opinion.
Yep, absolutely. Really quickly, did want to give a shout out to Virtually Identical, who was the one who said, here's my question, and showed the video of Andrade appearing to tap. And it really does, from this video, look like she's tapping, by the way.
Never trust technology.
Yeah, exactly. Again, Virtually Identical, thank you for the question. Excellent question. We both think that, the ref did not see it. It doesn't look like Andrade was in a particular situation where she was truly in enough pain to submit. I don't have an explanation for that, half a second clip. But I do believe that Andrade won fair and square, despite what appears to be a tap for sure.
Agreed. All right, another question about Rose from Jalen Ware at strive2be_great. He says, with Rose's comments after the fight about maybe retiring, is it a good thing that she didn't win and retain the belt as with that mindset? What do you think?
My answer is no, because first of all, I think that, a lot of what Rose said was out of emotion. We know that she's a very emotional person. She wears her heart on her sleeve. Ain't nothing wrong with that. I'm similar in competition, and by competition I mean lame Muay Thai and BJJ sparring against 40-year-olds. So let's keep that in perspective. But listen, I completely understand being emotional after a fight. And she's going to say things that, are in the moment. She's feeling emotional. She's feeling annoyed, frustrated. She knows she was winning the fight up until that point. So I understand that Rose was upset. No, I don't think it was a good thing that she lost. I think that, I think she'll be back. I'm not convinced she'll retire for good, even if she takes a long break.
Yeah, so, I think she'll be gone for close to a year again, though.
Oh, yeah. Of course. What else?
I think Rose is going to be one of those type of fighters now that where she has extended breaks between her camps.
That's okay. You know what? That's okay with me.
That's fine. Yeah. All right, I got another one here from Reed at Daily Knockout. He says, where does Volkanovski go from here? Do you think Edgar getting the title shot over Volkanovski is the right call? We talked about that. I think we both thought that Edgar getting the call is a little crazy.
Yeah, totally disagree.
Who would you like to see Andrade fight next? I think we both mentioned that. I'd like to see JJ. You'd like to see Rose. And he says, if Cerrone beats Ferguson and looks good doing so, does he leapfrog everyone for the lightweight title shot?
Okay. So
go ahead with that one.
Yeah, I'll take that one first. So the answer is I think that the winner of Cowboy versus Tony is absolutely getting Khabib, but they're getting Khabib in December. I do believe that Dustin Poirier versus Khabib is happening at UFC 242 in Abu Dhabi. I have inside sources, who sometimes are accurate, sometimes are not. But the ones that I've heard from have pretty good track records telling me that Poirier versus Khabib is very much the plan for Abu Dhabi at 242. And I have no doubt that Cowboy and Tony were both told, if you win this fight, you're getting the next shot against Khabib in December. So, that's I don't even think that Cowboy needs to look amazing and knock Tony out cold. I think that the winner of that fight gets Khabib in December.
Absolutely. I mean, good Lord, what do you want? What more could either guy possibly do at that point after beating the other?
Yep.
I mean, Tony would be on, a 14-fight winning streak after beating Cowboy Cerrone, who's on a career resurgence, and Cowboy would be coming off of beating Mike Perry, Alexander Hernandez,
Al
Iaquinta, and Tony Ferguson. Yeah, that'll get you a title shot.
Yep, totally agree.
All right, I got one right here. It says, this is Pat Tobin, at Pat_Tobin. He says, with a few key lightweight matchups confirmed, who does that leave Conor with? Is Gaethje a future fight he wants any part of, or does he continue to sit back and wait for these fights to play out? This is really interesting because Conor's priced himself out of the lightweight market. I don't think he wants to fight.
Yeah, do you want to go first on this one?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say, I think that Conor is first and foremost a businessman. People are going to be annoyed by this answer. Do I think he fights Justin Gaethje? Not a snowflake's chance in hell.
No way.
There's literally zero chance he takes that fight, guys, so no need to even begin to get excited for it. Zero chance. I'm going on record.
It'll be booked tomorrow. Now.
I'm going on record. Zero chance that McGregor fights Gaethje. Zero chance. He has everything to lose, nothing to gain in terms of his drawing power. I would not be surprised at all if we see Conor wait out, not fight until March or April of next year in a Khabib rematch or whoever's holding the belt at that time.
Yeah, I could see Conor just waiting till next year.
Exactly. I think he will. I think he'll fight April of next year.
I think he'll probably wait out because like you said. But at what point, does he come back? Did you see the Instagram post of him shadow boxing in the night on the streets?
No. Actually,
he's getting more and more erratic. I just don't know that you're ever going to see an elite Conor McGregor ever get back in the cage.
Well, that's not. Oh, I agree with you, but that's his whole separate thing from his drawing power. And when you really
No, I agree.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is because, I mean, he knows that he's not the same fighter he was. And when he was at the best in his game, he was very picky with his fights. You know what I mean? Now he's going to be even pickier because, like you said, he has everything to lose and nothing to gain unless there's a belt on the line. There's only one way for Conor McGregor to up his stock, and that's beating Khabib. It's literally the only way.
Right, and that's
never happening.
That's not going to happen. So I think I think what Conor's going to do is he is going to sit out and he's going to pray that Tony Ferguson or Dustin beats Khabib. Now listen, if Dustin beats Khabib, you can bet your ass Conor will be screaming for a fight with Dustin, screaming hysterically. And even if Tony wins, I think that he will want that shot, but he's trying to wait out Khabib until at least early next year.
I agree. All right. Got another one here from Eduardo at Landa Crew. He asked us last week and we forgot to mention it. He said, "Can I get your fight night menus?"
You go first.
Well, I'm very particular with mine. I do crock pot pulled pork sandwiches, barbecue potato chips, and Dos Equis with lime is usually how I get down on a Saturday afternoon.
Ooh, okay. Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening for me. So now I feel like less of an alcoholic now that you admitted that. So thank you. Because I'm always getting down with the vodka soda is my go-to. Gotta keep that bod ready for the ladies, So let all the jokes fly. Oh my gosh, I feel like it just destroyed my rep in 5 seconds. But that's okay. Vodka soda. And you know what I really love is I'll often go to the bar for these pay-per-views because they've just gotten so expensive. And I'm a big fan of nachos with everything on them. Like I'm talking chicken, beef, cheese, guacamole, sour cream, every single calorie you can imagine. Put it on there and get me a bunch of vodka sodas.
But what about the bod you were just talking about?
Well, that's how I justify with the vodka sodas.
Oh, balanced diet.
Yeah, I live a very balanced meal is the best bet. Okay,
nice.
Wait, really quick. So this is from CBC at Chaz Reinhold. He says, "Does a win really do anything for Pettis or Diaz? They're both not true welterweights, and they both are on the outside looking in at lightweight. I love the matchup, but it doesn't seem to do anything for them career-wise, which is totally fine. I'd rather watch good fights, but what are your thoughts?"
Well, first of all, it does, even though it may not do anything for them in terms of gaining a title shot, this is a legacy fight for both of these guys in certain aspects. For instance, Diaz beats Pettis, the former 155 champion, Wheaties box guy, the Pettis brothers, the Diaz brothers. There's like a pseudo rivalry there. It will help his legacy. It will add to his legacy. If he goes in there and boxes up and is stalked and slapping, Pettis, who just knocked out Wonder Boy, I think that actually does raise Nate Diaz's stock quite a bit.
Yeah.
And vice versa, Pettis, who's a guy who hit incredible highs as, the Wheaties box and the lightweight champion, has seen some rough days since then, and it would be a huge crowning achievement for him to come and, let's say, finish a Nate Diaz or someone like that at this point, whose name recognition, even though he hasn't had the same kind of career as Pettis, Diaz's name recognition is arguably bigger than Anthony Pettis's. So there's something to be won on both sides here. So this is an excellent legacy fight, in my opinion. This is one of those fights where, similar to Diego versus Melendez story-wise, I'd say. Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
So yes, I mean, I expect, just based on the styles, it's going to be a striking war. I expect, Pettis to have the sharper, more powerful punches, but Pettis has all kinds of cardio problems, and Nate Diaz can go forever. So that fight has late rounds, Nate Diaz finishing Pettis all over.
Yeah, and remember, one wrinkle, it's only 3 rounds.
Ooh, that's true. Either way, I've seen Pettis' cardio fade in the second round.
Yeah. It's going to be a fascinating fight.
The fact that it's 3 rounds, you just killed me.
Sorry.
When you said that, it just was like, well, why even do it then? No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, Tony versus Cowboys only 3 also.
That's just crazy to me.
I like it.
That plays the Cowboys' favor, in my opinion.
Possibly. What I like about it is that
older fighters need a shorter fight. Tony would drag him into deep water.
I think that the UFC is suddenly trying to beef up pay-per-views a little bit with legit matchups that have previously been going to fight night main events, and I would be lying if I didn't say that I liked that. Pay-per-views are getting too thin nowadays to justify the price.
I agree. This last week's pay-per-view, the first 2 fights, they had a Betch Correa fight on the pay-per-view.
Right. Exactly.
That is literally rock bottom for the pay-per-views.
Yes, I agree. So I don't dislike this pattern of beefing up.
You mean you don't want Priscilla Cachoeira on the Brazilian pay-per-view next year?
I knew you were going to make a... Why did you have to make a joke about her? You know I like her. Okay, just whatever. Okay, so my last question. Everybody likes
her, she just can't win a fight.
Okay, all right. My last question from Uncle Yagi at Enzuki _101. What happens if Frankie beats Max? You want to take this first?
What happens? He's got to fight Volkanovski.
You think Max doesn't deserve an immediate rematch?
If Max loses to Frankie Edgar after getting brutalized by Dustin Poirier...
He didn't get brutalized. That was a competitive fight at a weight that he moved up to, and he looked tiny.
He got beat up pretty good, though. I mean, whether you want to admit it or not, there was some damage done in that fight.
No, of course I admit that. Of course, I'm not delusional, but you're saying Holloway doesn't deserve a rematch for his belt?
Well, I guess that's how it would go down. Gosh, I just am so tired of rematch. I mean...
I understand. Well, I understand that, especially with something like Cody Garbrandt versus Dillashaw too. That was obviously ridiculous. Garbrandt hadn't even defended the title, but Holloway has defended the title twice against Aldo and Brian Ortega.
I mean, I don't know. I guess obviously he would be deserving, but at that point, I will have seen Max lose twice in a row. It's not a good look.
I hear you. I would personally want the Holloway Edgar 2 rematch immediately, and so you would.
I don't want Holloway Edgar 1. Why would I want Holloway Edgar 2?
Well, we both agree Frankie doesn't deserve it, so we can't make it even worse by not giving Holloway the rematch.
Ortega's fighting Zabit. Whoever wins that fight can get the next shot.
Okay. All right. Okay, so that's all for my questions.
Especially if it's Frankie, because then Frankie has the opportunity to avenge his loss to Ortega. So it's actually a better storyline for Frankie to fight Ortega if he wins.
Fair. Okay. All right. Do you have any other questions?
I think that does it.
Wait. Hold on 1 second. I'm scared that we didn't. Sorry. Last one. This is from Anish Nair. This is at Big Anish M. Nair. He said, let's talk about the upcoming Rochester card. Where does RDA go from here if he struggles against Kevin Lee and loses? Is his welterweight run over? What's up with lightweights fighting at welterweight in the second tier bottom as they don't have any chance of winning the title?
A, they're too old to cut weight to 155. B, they still need to get paid. Those are the 2 points as why he should keep fighting, if that's what I am reading right. There's plenty of guys in that division. I mean, I'd still watch RDA versus Carlos Condit if he loses. I'd still watch RDA versus Michael Chiesa if he loses. I'd watch RDA versus Mike Perry if he loses. I'd watch all of these fights. So RDA has a long shelf life, even if he's hovering in the 10 to 15 range of that division. As he ages, he's the perfect kind of guy to be a gatekeeper. He's tough everywhere. He's a striker. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's got championship medal. He's got experience. He's a great guy to test the next wave against if he's not on a title run, which he's clearly not right now.
Yep. I completely agree with you. I think that, even if RDA does lose, he's got plenty of options, for him. He's going to be just fine.
The great part about 170 is like the number 15 through 30 guys in the world are all really good too. I mean, RDA versus Alan Jouban is an interesting fight also. There's like a million names you could plug in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what happens if RDA, to answer Anish's question directly, Anish, what happens if RDA loses is he becomes the villain of Ghostbusters 1, and this is a very nerdy joke. He becomes the Keymaster, which is the villain from Ghostbusters 1. Okay? So he's going to be the Keymaster, he's going to be the key gatekeeper, and he's going to go and fight people like Fight Geek just named. And it's going to be perfectly fine and exciting for him, and perfectly exciting matchups for us.
Like Cowboy Oliveira versus RDA. I'll watch that all day.
Yeah, Cowboy Oliveira's got to get a win before that.
Well, I'm saying these are the kind of fighters that could be on 3-fight losing streaks. You're still going to tune in and be excited because they're going to throw down.
Right. Absolutely. But yes, that's the final answer, Anish. He will become the villain from Ghostbusters 1, the Keymaster.
He said it.
All right. So is that it for this week?
I think that does it, guys.
Okay, take us away.
You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, and Stitcher. I'm at the Fight Geek MMA. He's at Phil the MMA Dude. We are at Split_podcast. It's 4 words, the Split Decision Podcast. Thanks for tuning in this week. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.